Okay, so we are recording from now on. So, as I said, it's a good evening and welcome from myself. I want to start off, first of all, with a few words about 2022 Santas, which will be obviously taking place in November, December. We're going to go to a slightly different format this year. We're going to have 2 Santas on each train to try and give the children a little extra time to see Santa. It's going to be a change. It's going to be difficult to organise, but we're hopeful it will work quite well. The Santas, the train consist will change. The brake van disabled area will be in the centre of the train as carriage D. I think it's going to be labelled carriage D because there may be still some disabled people in carriage D. So A, B and C will be at the north end. E, F, G will be at the south end, and most of the carriage D, the brake van, will actually have the windows blacked out so that when the Santas are hiding inside there, then nobody outside can see them. We're going to have to be very careful that only one Santa ever shows his face at one time. It does mean, of course, that we are looking to recruit some more Santas. If you know anybody who fancies even a half a day, 2 or 3 trips as a Santa during November and December on one day at the weekend, or in fact just before Christmas, then they'll be more than welcome to join us. We can provide training and all the outfit that they will need, and they will have the support of the Santa team as it's been in the past, and all the experienced Santas will advise them. But we do need some more Santas so that we don't have to go to the expense of hiring anybody in to fill any of the spots. That would be quite expensive. But we do need 4 Santas on each train. And even more importantly, I suppose, we need more elves. I've been in charge of managing the elves for a number of years now, and often I've been struggling to try and get people to come and be an elf. We need at least 2, preferably 3 elves with each Santa presence. And it would be helpful if we could find out a lot more potential elves of whatever age. We've had some young ladies in their teens have helped out. And we've had dear old Eric, who's now retired, who was in his 80s before he finally finished 2 years ago. So anybody who wants to be an elf, I would quite gladly take them on and train them and use them. We will be looking to the colleges for some recruits this year. We've got quite an extensive program to try and get people from there, but we'll see how that goes as time goes on. So anybody who wants to be a Santa or an elf, if they want to contact me with my Hops email address, or possibly Lorna, if you don't want to come to me directly, then we'll be glad to hear from them. There's a few logistics problems about how the Santas and the band, we're hoping the band will be back on the train this year, and we haven't yet worked out how they're going to pass as they walk them down the train, but we'll sort that out, possibly at Irwell Vale, I don't know. The second point I need to raise is maybe most people on here now don't know that in the olden days, when I first started 14 years ago, most of our communication information on the internet was through a forum called NU-ELR, which allowed a lot of discussion, slightly better than Facebook and Twitter and so on, which is small comments. That's just had a revamp. It's been updated and is still operating. Anybody who's interested to know anything about it, if they contact me as well, I can give them details of how to log on to it and see what's happening. Some of the electrical volunteers, the ones who are mainly active at the moment, but other departments have got a section, and they used to be quite active a few years ago, but it has died out a bit. Anybody who wants to resurrect a discussion on the forum, then I'll be more than happy to point them in the right direction. Okay. We're moving on now to Keith Whitmore, who wants to have a few words about developments at Buckley Wells. Are you there, Keith?
I am. I'm just unmuted. Thanks very much, Mike. I know there is a question from Stuart about the museum. Obviously, since the last forum, there have been substantial changes within the museum. It seems like longer but it isn't even yet a month since the museum reopened with number 9 as the new showcase for the museum. And we certainly have number 9 with us for some time, possibly up to 12 months. And then after that, we have a further discussion about the future refresh of the museum, which may still include in South Africa within the building. We had a formal, very successful launch on the 31st of May. We were very much graced with the presence of Sir Nigel Gresley on that occasion, or perhaps Keith Shilton might be appropriate in that regard to be a very good reenactor of Sir Nigel Gresley at the launch. The launch was very well attended by both Heritage Press and indeed people such as the leader of the Bury Council who came, TransPennine Express, other railway
device already ready to connect.
And that I think was very encouraging indeed.
The device pair successful.
Sorry, Keith, can I just interrupt you for a moment? Somebody is not muted and I can't spot who it is on my screen, but it is coming over the system. If you're not muted, would you please do so that we don't get that sort of interruption? I can't see anybody who's not
Sounds
muted.
very American.
Yeah, I don't know what
On
it
the
is.
voice.
I'm sorry, Keith, carry on.
Nope, that's absolutely fine. So we had a very successful launch on the 31st of May of the museum refresh, and the museum then opened to the public on the 1st of June. Now, we haven't, of course, yet had a whole month of the reopening of the museum. From what I have seen, the visitor numbers have been very encouraging indeed, and certainly very strong. As I think most people are aware, there is a new policy with the museum. There is now a £5 charge for entry in the museum for adults and £3 for children. If there are full tickets or dining experiences, and obviously those are still a free access to the museum. That, of course, is gift aided and is also available for 12 months free entry into the museum. We've had a refresh in what's actually in the museum sales wise as well. There's new stock in there, some which is very much A4 related. Also, we're on the EPOS system within the museum, which I think is proving, well, it was challenging. I think it's now proving quite satisfactory, the EPOS system. In terms of what has happened so far, I mean, I really do have to put on record my thanks to Lee Kenny and the team for the actual effort that was put in to get the locomotive into the building, and it did fit in. Just, I would say, there was a couple of tense moments, but the loco slid into the museum well, and is now visible so that you can actually see the profile of the museum. Now, to have done that, of course, there have been some items that have had to leave the collection, including the 2 traction engines, which have now found a new home at the Statfold Barn Railway. As far as any further refresh is concerned, there are some items that we do want to do, such as we want display banners within the building itself. We want a better entrance into the museum as well. We are potentially looking actually a stained glass mosaic on the glass of an A4 as part of the actual coming into the building itself. We're also looking at the visitor experience. We think that people need to get an explanation about the A4 on the footplate, and certainly we have been successful in volunteers being on the footplate of the locomotive to give some explanation. And we are looking at other areas in terms of the benefit of visitor experience with engagement, so that there are other exhibits displayed. One of the items that we're looking at quite closely is the horse tram that's owned by Eaton Park Tramway to better display that and potentially even to have a horse attached to it. Not a live one, I would hasten to add, but if anybody's been to Boyle Street, a similar horse to that in Boyle Street itself. We've had a couple of meetings now with volunteers. We've had a new museum committee as well. We do want to see more volunteers within the building, Mike. So if anybody would like to be involved within the museum volunteers, please do come forward. We actually do have a meeting next Wednesday at 4:30 in the education room at the museum. So if anybody does want to come along to that meeting to look at volunteering in the museum, then certainly you would be very welcome indeed. So I think that covers the refresh, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Keith. I did get a text message, Kath, from Sean Lee, who said he was struggling to get in. I don't know whether has he made it in yet? I've sent him a link.
Waiting.
No, I can't see.
No, he's not in. No, he's not. He's not in the waiting room either.
All right. Well, I've sent him the link again by text, but still. Okay.
Keep an eye out.
It won't matter. Another quick word from me. Many of you will now have realised that I have left my role as chair of the champions, but they did ask me to continue to do this role as chairing this meeting every 3 or 4 months. The champions is going strong still, and Alex Thomas, who's taken over as chair, is going to go do a very good job, I'm sure. He's recruited a few new people, but there are still a few vacancies still. I don't know whether Eileen, who is the vice chair, are you, Eileen? Would you want to say anything about the champions?
We do need more. We particularly need more from the STEAM department. We'd like to get somebody who represents every department so that everybody has a voice, basically. Yeah, and Alex has lots of good ideas.
Yes, I'm very pleased Alex has taken over. He's going to do a good job. Okay, so if you're interested in the champions, want to know anything more about it, just contact Alex or Eileen. You see Eileen around quite a lot. Alex is a guard and often works weekends, but Eileen's on the station 9 days a week, so I'm sure you'll see more of her. Right, we'll move on to the questions and answers now. I've got quite a wide variety of questions, which I have transformed to a PowerPoint display, and I'm going to see whether I can share that on the screen with you now. Can you see that one? Has it come up? Yep, you can. Yes, hopefully you can. I can't see you now, but I can see that. So the first question was, let's start the slideshow off. Okay, the first question came from Peter Jones. I didn't notice whether David was here or not, but Peter asked about the current price and availability of coal, and David has responded to me saying it's a bit irrelevant really, because we have sufficient supply until the end of the year, which is at an agreed price and payment method. They are commercially sensitive, those particular details, which we've made a special arrangement presumably, and it is changing all the time, but we've got a guaranteed supply until the end of the year. So unless, is David on board with us tonight? No, not saying anything.
Yes, I'm here, mate.
Yeah, do you want to add anything further to that, David?
Not really. It is an ever-changing situation, and to be quite honest, there've been all sorts of trials going on that people in STEAM will know rather more than I do. But if you follow Facebook or National Preservation or stuff like that, and particularly through the HRA, there's all sorts of things going on. I don't think there's going to be an immediate answer to everything, but certainly we've been trying various combinations of whatever black stuff they can provide to us. We have a considerable coal pile down at Butley Wells. We have a supplier who, I say, we've got a supply till the end of the year at an agreed price and an agreed payment method. So from that point of view, we are self-sufficient in supplies until roughly the end of the year. Beyond that, again, we are very much dependent upon what comes up. I know that FOSS, which is somewhere where we've not had in the past, has been allowed to continue or reopen or whatever, but whether or not that will be an ongoing one, how long's a piece of string? The price of diesel fuel as it stands, Lee managed to get a very good deal with suppliers at something like 28 to 30p a litre less than we paid recently. So, things are changing, and those are the two big costs that we're dealing with at the moment.
Thanks, David. Yeah, we're going to come back to price of diesel later on in one of the other questions. I'll move on to question 2. There we go. This is from Malcolm. It's in 3 parts, really. Malcolm Ridgway. On our profit and loss account, are we currently covering the debt due to the interest we must be paying each month? It appears that Trackside has been franchised due to the work that's being done to it. So does it also include the buffer stops at Rottenstall? Is it true that there's been £650,000 donation to get the crab running? If this is the case, why is the money not being spent on it? Well, David did respond to me, and I'll just briefly go through what he says. You can read it on the screen. We don't have any debt apart from advanced bookings for events where we've taken money from customers. Obviously, we then have to deliver a service to them. And the ones that we took before COVID interrupted us is being repaid per schedule, and the government business recovery loans being repaid over the last 16 months. Interest is being charged and covered, so there's no problem with the debt that we have. It's part of the running expenses of the railway. Trackside has not been franchised, although there is an outside company operating in there. They are, I don't know what the arrangements are myself, but it's not a franchise system. And so the question about buffers is irrelevant. And the third question about £650,000, no substantial truth to it at all. So wherever the rumours come from, the Director of Finance doesn't know about it. So that's not true. Anything else to add, David?
Not really, Mike. Just a point on the trackside. The ELR appointed consultants to assist us with the trackside, and they're at an agreed fee, which is split into a fee for helping us rebuild the place and get it back into working order, and then a fee on top of that, dependent on the results that are coming out. So it is in effect result based. The buffers, trackside is still under the control of the company. It's not been franchised. I don't know where that one's come from. Just a point on government business recovery loan. We did, of course, take a business recovery loan out, but if I say to you that the figure that was taken is a lot lower than some of the other big railways who have got significant financial debt wrapped around themselves now, we were content with the amount that we had to take. It's being repaid as per schedule. Interest was not charged for the first 12 months as per the agreement with the government, and interest is just charged on it. I've seen a chat one there that's appeared at the bottom. Will the crab take £650,000? Probably not. Probably nowhere near that. But on the other hand, there's all sorts of different options being assessed with regard to the steam loco fleet at the moment. And that's something that Lee and Graham Thornton, as director of TNRS, have put some superb work into lately. Because obviously, if you're looking at things like City of Wells now, to put City of Wells into traffic and use it for a day is costing well into 4 figures. And it may well be that smaller engines are the way forward, certainly in the shorter term. But of course, we do have a number of services that do require larger engines. So it is very much a question of balancing the economics. The problem with the crab is the boiler. The boiler is something like 1936, I think I'm right, Lee, in saying. It's not quite as old as the locomotive, but obviously it is something like now 90 years old or thereabouts. So we may well be looking at at some form of a new boiler, and it may not be a copper boiler. You know, there are all sorts of different options that are being looked at. But certainly, if anybody wanted to come up with 650,000, there's plenty of projects we could put it towards.
Thanks, David. In fact, you've touched on the next couple of questions, which came in from Nigel Barnes about the status of the refurbishment of the crab and the Ginty and the plans for the finance of these projects. Lee Kenny has issued me with some written statements, and he will comment on them afterwards. For the Ginty, the boiler work is progressing, but there's some problems with the correct specifications for the rivets in the foundation ring. But once that's sorted, we'll be allowed to turn work on the crown stay replacement, and work will commence on the frames in the last quarter, which is from October, November, December, presumably, if that's our year. And they having a period to tidy up the shed and clear out the working before the work on the frames commences.
Yeah,
the funding is available. Yes, David?
Just to go back to the crab, Mike, if I can.
Well, that's the next one on. Let me go on to the crab then. The crab's here. This is what Lee has said, where the frames are going to go across to Sheffield for work. And that's going to allow us time and space to work on the Ginty in the second paragraph.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that from Lee, but that is virtually as up to date as it stands.
Anything to add to that, Lee? No.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Mike, I was trying to unmute myself. No, I don't think there's much more to add. But one thing over the last 18 months has come apparent. Obviously, everybody's aware of our prices and material costs have gone up. So the original boiler quote we had back in 2019 or 2018 has probably gone up by 150, 200,000. So that's to repair the existing boiler. So, and I don't think I'll be far off with that estimate. You know, so you would be talking probably very easily into that 650K figure if we were to repair the existing boiler. This is why we're looking at alternatives, because there's no saying, even if we spent that amount of money on the existing boiler, that we may get 10 years out of it, but we'll be looking at probably a similar figure again after 10 years to refurbish it again. So we've got to look sensibly at other alternatives, where if we go down the steel firebox route, and the steel boiler essentially, that we can sort of say, well, we're going to get 20 years or 30 years use out of it. So it become almost a throwaway item after 20 or 30 years, and you start again. But I think that's going to be the cheaper option in the long run than repairing the old boiler over and over again.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Sadly, I can't see if anybody wants to raise a question. They're going to have to use the chat line, because that's the only way. I can't see other screens. I can only see what's on the PowerPoint display. So if you have got a question you want to raise, please use the chat, and we'll try and include them, even if they are a little bit out of sequence. Moving on to two questions about signal boxes. Richard Kinchin is asking about Rawtenstall West. Are there any plans to he's asking about Townsend Fold. Any plans to refurbish the box at Townsend Fold because of its parlour state with the roof lamination falling down?
If Richard Law's not on the line, I can answer that question.
I think Richard's on somewhere.
Yes, he is.
Yes,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. The answer is yes. Are there any plans to refurbish Townsend Fold signal box? Yes, this year.
Oh, this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Fine, thanks, Richard. That's answered that question quite simply. The second.
Can I just add to that, Mike? Because this comes back to something that this message went out on hops several weeks back. There's a full program of restoration and repairs for 2022, which Rich is right, and there's a full list in one of the hops messages that was sent out. Again, hops is an important medium for telling members what's happening. So if Richard can get an older version of the hops, you'll see the full list of restoration for the year.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Mike. The second question, which I briefly showed, is also about those two boxes from John Spick. Why are signal boxes receiving no supplies 2 months since the last delivery, and repairs are not being done or even acknowledged on hops? I'm not quite sure is that again, Richard? Can we, or is that somebody else to respond to that one?
Supplies for signal boxes is definitely not me.
No.
I probably don't engage with hops on every particular minor repair that's logged in hops, because some of them are so minor that they just get swept up with other repairs.
Fine.
I can try and answer that one, Mike. I did speak to Keith Howarth, who used to provide that service, and obviously he's stood back a little bit now, and I think we are struggling to get that back up to speed again. I did speak to Martin McCann, who's obviously overseeing the station side of the supplies, but perhaps a conversation tomorrow could be undertaken as to who's looking after the signal boxes, and we thank John for raising that query.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Can I just come in on that one?
Is that John?
Sorry?
Is that John? I can't see who
No,
it
it's
is.
Graham.
Graham, sorry, Graham, yes.
Yeah. Can I just come in on that one as regards supplies? So occasionally, I get a request from Rottenstall West Signal Box that they're requiring, for example, toilet roll or refuse sacks or whatever, and I just order them. When they come to me, they come to the station and collect them.
Fine. Maybe John, who says he's the caretaker, is not aware of that though. But I think it's a discussion that has got to be had about who's going to be responsible for them, and who's going to make sure it's carried out. We'll leave that to the staff who now know there's a problem to look into that and probably come back to it at another time. The fifth question, I apologize here, it says unknown. It's not strictly true. It's just the fact I lost the name of the person whose email it was that sent this question in, and I couldn't remember it. When I went back to it some time later, I couldn't work out whose email it was, and I have dozens of emails every day, and I couldn't find out which one it was, so I just put the word unknown. While the railway claiming numbers are down, I'm not sure they are yet only running certain smaller diesel engines that bring in no visitors and won't run bigger engines that bring in the money. Surely running a bigger engine that costs a little more in fuel that brings a lot more people in is better than running a small engine that brings little, if any, guests. It can't be due to engine size or weight, as they ran one of the heaviest of our fleet the other week, and yes, it brought visitors. So somebody basically thinks that running a larger engine will bring in more visitors. And I think I've had a response from Lee, which I will show you. The reason why we have opted to run smaller diesels recently is that fuel prices recently reached 135, and so a class 45 or a similar loco costs about £900 in diesel fuel alone. So from the data we've collected, we are struggling to cover normal operating costs even when we run big and high-profile diesels. To run a class 24 costs £400 less in diesel fuel costs, and it's going to happen like that for quite a while now. But we have managed to secure a better deal for fuel on a recent delivery. I've summed up what Lee said there. Does anybody want to come in on that particular point? No response. Okay, so It's basically the price of fuel that dictates the size of the loco that we're going to run. Andrew Mitchell has visited the Bluebell Railway and noticed that they are advertising a reciprocal agreement with the ELR. We have a reciprocal travel arrangement with about a dozen other heritage railways around the country. The list, I believe, is available on Hops and is sent out from time to time by an email. But Bluebell have not appeared. And Andrew is asking why, and I think Martin McCann has said that it was copy and pasted over, but they accidentally missed the Bluebell off. So Bluebell Railway do offer a reciprocal agreement. I can tell that because I've been there myself a few years ago, but they do honor a reciprocal agreement if you want to go and visit the Bluebell. If you don't know all the dozen railways or so that they do offer reciprocal arrangements, which generally is free travel, but maybe not necessarily, but you need to show your working members pass. It only applies to yourself when you travel with them. I don't know what would happen about the partners passes, which I'll come back to soon because we've got a question. But this was an oversight, and Martin apologizes for whatever happened. Andrew also asks about the curtain barrier that's on the platform at Ramsbottom, which he says discourages customers, and Martin has given me the following response. Sadly, due to staff shortages at Ramsbottom, predominantly only the station master being there, it's very difficult for the station master to perform their duties as well as monitor passenger flow onto the platform. The station master's priority is the safe operation of their station. I think that's performing, not preforming, their operational duties in a diligent and safe manner. Ramsbottom is further hampered by its central location in the town, a town which lacks any public facilities, and the station was vastly becoming nothing more than a public toilet, which put more pressure on the limited staff. There have also been incidents of public disorder on the platform, examples of which people under the influence of alcohol being abusive to staff, antisocial behaviour from groups of youths. These are just some of the severe incidents that have happened pre the barrier being installed. Is having a barrier ideal? No, it isn't. It's not something that will be a permanent fixture, and eventually it will be removed. What we do need at Ramsbottom is support for the station master. So if anyone here at the forum today would like to consider volunteering and working at Ramsbottom, you're more than welcome to contact the station master. I'm sure you'll be most appreciated. Anybody want to comment on that? I don't know if Chandra's with us today, or Richard or Martin. Anybody want to say anything? Can't see. No, nobody's coming in. Okay, I will move on. Jim Tew, could you verify the ruling about disability scooters accessing our trains via the ramp? And I presumably means also the Barrow Crossing. And his second question, I've been approached by passengers asking about buffets on the trains. Are there plans for their return? And I have not got a response to this from anybody. Can anybody come in on this one, please?
Mike, I'm very happy to talk about point 2.
Yes, go on then, Richard.
Yeah, I think the challenge we have with buffets is they take out 24 seats, and our sets, our train sets are restricted in length. We have to be mindful of the maximum load length at Burrs. So for that reason, we've taken out the buffet, but it's something we keep under review. And you know, what we don't want to do is to lose revenue, but at the same time, we've got to carefully balance that with, for example, group bookings, because we're doing really well this year, doing really well group bookings. So we want to make sure there's enough seats for people as well.
Okay, right. Thanks for that one. Anybody know anything about disability scooters on the trains? Richard, can you help us with this one?
Okay. The disability scooters has been discussed at the safety team meeting. They don't like calling it a safety committee, although it is. But following a chap falling off his disability scooter, we've looked at the reasonable risks that are presented, and we have noticed that some of them are inherently unstable. And when we find out how to define those unstable ones, so the ones with very tiny wheels where somebody sits on little more than a skateboard, those people will be allowed on our trains, as will be the scooter. However, they will not be able to ride up the ramp. They'll have to go separately. So the whole process of agreeing a scooter policy is under review, and I imagine that it will be resolved probably before the middle of July.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Thank you. That's very helpful. I'll just step back slightly. If you're following chat at the same time, Stephen Holt has reported that there are actually 20 heritage railways and tramways with a reciprocal arrangement with ourselves. Stephen's been negotiating some, and the Avon Valley has just joined the list. I think perhaps we might try to get that one circulated to everybody so they all know which ones are which. Okay, moving on. David Maxwell has sent a statement question. I would like to know if the maintenance of the railway is deliberately being run down due to the threat of the line being taken over by a Rossendale commuter railway. I hope he's saying that in tongue-in-cheek. Building and especially signal boxes have not been painted for years. Track is full of weeds and vegetation. Line growth and overhanging trees is left to grow. Signal box steps at Ramsbottom and Bury are both in poor condition. I'm told that no more signalling enhancements will be carried out, i.e. the Rottenstall Fall signalling, until this threat has disappeared. Coaching stock is also looking very shabby. Compare that to a visit from made today to the Keighley-Worth Valley, where everything looks immaculate. And I think you would agree, we're starting to look second rate. I have to say, David, that my team is responsible for most of the painting on the railway, and that's about 70% of our job. We are continually painting everything that we can. In fact, if you know anywhere that does need painting, please let me know, because we can always go and sort it out. But signal boxes have been painted, Ramsbottom and Rottenstall not long ago. I know that Townsend Fold is due for one. Bury signal box is not in too bad condition as far as I know. The steps to Ramsbottom and Bury, I have been trying to find out whose responsibility they are to get them fixed, because the Bury one in particular has been reported to me, but I'm not sure that my team has got the skills or the ability to do a large job like repairing steps to signal boxes. That's a major job, really. And the signalling enhancements. We have just turned out 3 very nicely painted carriages, by the way, and the first out since COVID. So hopefully there'll be more coming soon. Anybody else want to come in with comments about this statement by David?
Yeah, Mike.
Yes, who's that? Who's that?
Mike.
Yeah, who's talking, please? I'm sorry, I don't know who you are.
Mike, just a thing from, I'm part of the, David, I'm part of the team that looks after trees.
Oh, right, David.
Trees.
Yeah, sorry, it's David Holmes.
We do have a small team. There is a plan from Mike Roseberry's team for overgrown trees. Obviously, this is not the right time to cut down trees, but all the main trees have been marked up. Some will be cut down this autumn over the winter. But, you know, and also there is one of the volunteers who is engaged. We've set up this wagon to do spraying of weed killing throughout the railway. I can't comment. I've seen it being fixed. I'm not involved in that, but there is a definite plan for spraying weed killer throughout the railway very, very shortly.
Thanks, David.
And also, Richard, some of us have been trained up on weed killing, and Richard, my boss, Richard Sandland, one of the new members, he has been spraying several of the stations. We've not ground all of them, but we're spraying all the station platforms with weed killer at the moment.
Thanks, David. That's an up-to-date on that. If anybody wants to talk, will you start with your name, please? Because I cannot see any pictures on my screen at the moment because I'm showing this.
Can I speak, Mike?
Mike, sorry, Mike.
Right.
Go on, you carry on, Mike.
Mike Kelly.
Yeah. Those of you who read my blog, there was a detailed piece about a new wheat train, which is David very eloquently described. Weeds have gotten away from us, one of the effects of COVID, but we now have a team of weed sprayers through Mark Roseberry. We also have a weed train now, so I'll try and reassure David that we will get on top of that, including overgrown shrubs and so on and so forth. But I'd like to address yet again this constant response to Rosendale. Can I just try and reassure everybody who's got their ears open, because I'm pretty fed up of explaining what's happening, and I feel to a large extent that nobody in the railway is deliberately running down the railway so we can make it easy for Rosendale to take over. Quite the opposite. I have been incredibly vociferous, publicly making public statements that to the effect that the railway objects to this commuter railway. It will not work, both from a finance point of view or an engineering or an operational point of view. We will continue to fight any suggestion that there is a commuter railway that could work on the heritage track. So please be assured, anybody who thinks we're trying to run the railway down, it's quite the opposite. We are stoic in our defense of this railway and will continue to do so. I hope it's the last question on this forum about the railway being overtaken by Rosendale. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Thanks, Mike. Lee, did you want to come in?
Yeah, Mike, I just felt obviously it was all right. Yes, the coaching stock has become shabby over the years, but essentially the railway was shut for 18 months. We moved a lot of the resources to doing contract work over that period of time to try and keep us afloat. And we are playing a large degree of catch up. We've employed the services of Heritage Painting, who have turned out, or they're just about to turn out the third vehicle next week, which will be out for the diesel gala. And there's another one in the pipelines of the budget I was provided by Kath to get the turnaround of the vehicles. And I'm hoping to have probably a similar amount next year to help us also catch up as well. It's been a bit of a difficult time because we haven't really had a carriage and wagon painter as well. So I'm looking to recruit another painter sometime this year, probably later on this year, last quarter, to help with that. But even if we've got a painter in, we'll still be talking, I'll still be looking for bringing outside contractors in to help us get where we need to be and get the vehicles back to where they need to be, certainly externally.
Thanks, Lee. So despite what David is trying to imply, I think we've all got a good case for objecting to all those statements from what we've said. Let's move on. Question 10. Mike Coop, who's one of the FXP presenters, whilst working at the Rottenstall Cafe on Saturday, one of the guards who regularly does FXPs said he had heard to save wear on carriages, they were looking at running goods only FXPs with no guests. This would not work as the majority of FXPs are purchased as presents, and the person purchasing the present would obviously want to come and watch as a guest. For those of you who don't know, on an FXP, not only is the driver there, but they often bring friends and family to join in the experience with them riding as passengers in the carriage. The guard I spoke to is not trained on goods, so would not be able to help in future. I understand there are only a very limited number of goods trained guards. It would also be nice if any alterations being considered are discussed with the people who've been running it for the last 15 years, then no mistakes will be made. Could we have clarification about what is being proposed? And Mark wants to say something. He did utter a few words to me, but he can expand on this if you want, Mark.
Hi. We're not doing any FXPs this year. I think there's one private FXP that's still to run, but the public FXPs are, we're not doing any this year. I don't think we've had a discussion about carriages or wagons. And I don't know when we're going to restore FXPs. I mean, there's a lot of variables at the moment, the cost of coal and water and diesel. So at the moment, FXPs aren't really on our mind at the moment. Probably my preference is because I've been a customer of an FXP both on my 30th and 40th birthdays, and it's nice to have the family in the carriages. But that's my personal preference. So I'm not sure where the information's come from, but certainly there's no plans. We're not even thought about what we're doing with FXPs at the moment beyond 2022. Thanks,
Mark. Moving on to Stuart's question now. Stuart McDonald, Guards Manager. After the move with 6009 to Castlecroft, please can you tell us what are the next phases of change for the Castlecroft Museum and roughly when will all this happen? Keith, have you got anything to add to this? You've already spoken about it a little bit.
Yes, I can update on that. As I indicated, the next phase of the refurbishment, we're looking at how we do the museum, is external appearance, banners, certainly within the building, the signage to the building as well, and better display of exhibits. There are some other issues that I think we're looking at with regards to the yard. I think you would have noticed that during the gala weekend, there was a good number of visitors coming into the yard to look at the LMY stock within the yard. And certainly we've had the pugging steam in the yard, and we have the pugging steam in the yard on the 31st of May Day. And I think activity in the yard is something that we do want to see a lot more of. There is, the volunteers are aware, there is a discussion going on with the National Rail Museum about some potential exhibits coming from York or Children to add to our collection there. There are some items that owners have requested to be removed from the museum, and those are being dealt with. So there'll be some refreshers, some items that owners have requested back. The time scale is very soon with regards to the banners and the signage. Obviously, negotiations with the National Rail Museum take some time. There are some issues. We do want to eventually see the museum properly accredited. That has quite a number of challenges to get accreditation, but that is something that we are going to be looking to embark on later in the year. Hope that helps.
Thanks, Keith. That's great. Yes. I've only got one more question, I think.
Could I?
Yeah.
I know Keith was down to update you on Buckley Wells, but I'm happy to do that now if that would help.
Yeah, please. If you could, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I did send out a Hops communique some time back. Basically, we've been successful in getting plan permission. I think that's fairly common knowledge across the ELR, and it's a ringing endorsement, I believe, from Bury Council. It's one of their top priorities going forward as part of their town centre strategy. We're one of the centrepiece elements in the construction of a new station square opposite the railway, where there currently is a car park. We know that the Buckley Wells development is also very much part of Bury going forward. We also know that Rochdale see the ELR very much as a centrepiece in their strategies for Harewood and, of course, Castleton. For us, back in ELR land, one of the big challenges is to get past the 21 planning conditions that was attached to the permission. Most of them are fairly routine, but some are quite hefty. For example, a full drainage plan for the whole of the Buckley Wells site. That will take consultants time to work through that. What we have done in the interim period since February is to establish two groups, one to look at future funding for the schemes, chaired by Keith Whitmore and I'm very grateful for his help and support on this. Keith has a lot of experience and a lot of contacts within that sector in terms of identifying and securing grants. The second group, which will look at the nuts and bolts of developing a construction plan, delivering a construction plan, and that's chaired by Andy Robinson, who's one of the directors, senior estimators at Cheetham Hill Construction, and we're grateful for his help and experience, and that's going to be really important. One of the other challenges, of course, is the cost of materials. If I tell you that we had an estimate for the superstructure 2.5 years back, it's come in at 2022 prices some 40% higher. So clearly, those original estimates might be under some pressure once we get into the nitty-gritty of materials, sourcing and purchasing. So for now, the two groups will continue to push forward, looking at every opportunity, of course, to secure funding for wells and the construction group to get through these 21 planning application conditions. I think it's a great achievement for the ELR, a historic achievement, and hopefully over the next period, we can start to see some shovels in the ground. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. I've got two more questions I need to put, one of which I read a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know why it's not appeared. I'll do that one first. I do apologise to Paul W. I can't remember what the W stands for. My question appears to have been missed. He says, has there been any discussion between the council and the ELR, and I think he means Rossendale Council, with regards to parking at Rottenstall West? They've now installed a parking meter. If not, there's an access gate opposite Rottenstall West. What's the possibility of turning that into a parking spot for signal staff? So he's concerned about having to pay for parking near to Rottenstall West signal box. Does anybody know anything about this at all? Is Graham there? Does he know anything?
I can Mike, Richard.
Yeah, Richard Law first, please.
Well, the signalman and I always used to park in the cobblers, is it? Whatever it was called. And yes, they've put gates on. They don't want us to park there. I think the suggestion that Paul makes to use the access gate opposite the station is a good one. And I think we should start to go in there. It's only a standard padlock key that's on the gate. A standard padlock that's on the gate.
Does the road surface need any, the surface, is it grass or muddy?
Well, my Land Rover has no problems at all. So, I really don't know.
We're not all gifted with
those.
No,
we can get easily a couple of cars in there without bogging anybody down. But yeah, it probably needs a bit of improvement. But in the short term, yes, get out and use standard padlock key and you can park there.
Right. Okay. I hope that answers what Paul wanted to know. And going right back up to the start of chat, those people who have been watching it, David Hill has asked if we can have clarification on working members, partners, nominated persons, passers, please. The fact it doesn't have to be a direct connection, but the fact it can be any nominated person. And that way, so working members who are single, the other half works on the railway, aren't discriminated against in that they are able to get a nominated person's pass. If that's the rules, then I think that does need clarification. I'm not sure who makes these rules. Kath's going to come in. Yes, Kath.
Yeah, I can try and answer that one. So any working member to be able to get their free travel must have a valid HOPS ID card. And for their nominated partner, they will also need photo ID, which will be issued by HOPS. It'll be a HOPS ID card. They won't have access to HOPS, but they will have a HOPS ID card to allow them to travel for free. That nominated partner can be nominated one partner per year, per valid year. Hope that clarifies it.
I'll just come back on that, Mike. It was just, can the railway put out a communication to say that it can be anybody as opposed to husband, wife, spouse? Because The railway put out a communication saying that the Hops ID card for the partners was going on to Hops, and when various people tried to get it for their other half or somebody else, it was knocked back. The Volunteers Champions were instrumental in having communications with management to actually get it so that it could be a nominated person's pass. But I don't think Hops has communicated out to everybody that it can be a nominated person. And I think that some people probably aren't aware of that and they're probably missing out on it, etc. So I think it's the communication that just needs to go out so everybody's aware, if we can, please. Thank you.
I can do that, yeah, not a problem.
Thanks, Kath. Thanks very much. I'm just looking through chat. There's a question about the flailer returning to the railway. Have we got any plans for the flailer to come back at all, Richard Law?
Thank you for that question. We have plans to bring the flailer back in winter. I don't propose to flail when it's all in leaf, because if we do that, we should be flailing all the cables that are around, or flailing all the junction boxes and half the signal wires. Flails are very dangerous things, so keep away from them. We've just got to try and keep on top of it. As David Hollington said earlier, we have got a lot of plans for our trees. Would you believe that that means that all the trees on the railway are actually identified and risk assessed for whether they're likely to fall over or whether they're likely to scratch the coaches? And we take it all very seriously, but we have only so many volunteers, and it's like everything else. We can only do what we can do. We've used contractors in the past to remove trees. The results of that have been that the local authority has flailed about sending out tree preservation orders as if they were confetti, to which we have objected, of course. That's what local authorities do. They even did it during the period when we were all locked down, which I think was a bit below the belt. Whilst we were all supposed to be furloughed, they were sat in their offices sending out tree preservation orders. And yeah, we shall flail. The flail last winter or this spring, I think, did a really, really good job. We overspent our budget by about £500, but I think the results were well worth it. And it stopped a lot of saplings coming up close to the railway.
Thanks, Richard. And probably
just Mike.
Who's this?
Mike, yeah, just you didn't read out my full question. So my question was had an operational slant on it. Appreciate Richard's comment about flailing in summer. That's fair enough. Could we prioritise trees that are overhanging near signals though for sighting? I mean, I don't mind getting involved myself, but certainly the outer home at Ramsbottom's notoriously bad as it is now. Townsend Fall was positioned on the other side, which was, it was always an issue, and that's great the past few years. Just to improve the key areas, really, or the high risk areas.
Yes. Can I come back on that one then?
Yeah, go on, Richard.
Thank you, James. The outer home, the up outer home at Ramsbottom, last year we put, under Mark Roseberry's leadership, we put a lot of effort into cutting back. We went into the paper mill, whatever they're called this week, Essity compound, and cut down an awful lot of trees and improved the sighting. I'm disappointed if it's going back to what it was, but the difficulty is the more you cut a tree, the more it stimulates it to grow. Unless you cut it at 3 inches above ground, it'll be back before you know. I'm all for pruning trees 3 inches above ground and then poisoning the stump. Trees and railways are a right problem. I'll have a look at the outer home. I'll go back and compare it with my photographs that I took last year and see what we can do.
And also, Mike,
yes, thanks, Richard.
We just need to add it to Mike Roseberry's list, and we will look at it very closely. I'll just add to Richard's comment there.
Paul has suggested a solution, You just put a rope around the bottom and attach it to a loco and the job will be done. But that's a little snippet. I think
That's
we're going to
a way of damaging locos.
we're going to finish with probably a sobering note. Paul Bonello wants to tell us about the price of fuel. Paul, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hope everybody can hear me. Kath will be very aware of this. It's been forecasted for some considerable time. I've just relet all the railways gas and electricity contracts with effect from the 1st of August. As I'm sure most of you are aware from your own bills at home, things have gone up considerably. Contracts we had were in place 4 years ago, so I was reasonably successful then, but the net effect is we're going to see an increase in our costs of well over 300%. And in money terms, Kath, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's at least £300,000 in a year. Now, it's just a plea to everybody. I'm doing it through, contacts in my department. Can we please look at everything we do? I am a semi-retired but professional energy manager. And a standard figure I use when I'm doing my work is that 20% of everything we use is waste. Now, in the case of our railway, that figure's probably more near 30%. Now, at £300,000 a year increase, please note, so the actual cost is probably near £500,000. That means that we've got the potential to save in excess of £100,000 by nothing more than using this to turn things off. So please, it's a plea. We're in summer at the moment, so we're hopefully not heating things. But as we move into the colder times of the year, a lot of the areas on the railway are heated electrically. If we need it, absolutely fine, then fine. We've got to have people working in comfort, but we don't need buildings warm and comfy when we're not there. Railway's been very good. They've invested in LED lighting technology. There's a few areas left to go. That will make a difference, but LEDs still use energy. Heating is the big one, though. Heating is, if you look at every heater and think of that as a £500 note, that'll give you a feel for what costs are. So it's just a plea, that on top of diesel, on top of the increase in coal, this is frightening. And if you think about how much we've got to take in revenue in terms of ticket sales, to raise the, diesel alone, they will correct me, but I'm sure we're probably looking at close to £100,000 additional cost there, and an increase in coal. So you're probably looking at £500,000. You just think what we've got to take in ticket sales to, to get that kind of profit. So we can all do something about it, whether it's not leaving engines idling, turning things off, please, and please can you cascade the message through your departments, your colleagues, your teams. We can all make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, for a sobering note there.
Mike,
Who's
Mike,
yep.
David Leyland. Can I just come in on that and just agree with everything that Paul Bonello has just said, because Kath will be seeing the results now of the increases. Paul has worked superbly over the years for us and kept some massive costs down by some fantastic negotiations on long-term contract rates. But I got very frustrated. I am quite sure Kath gets frustrated. Paul was even more frustrated with the amount of stuff that he's just left on. If you're going for a break, turn the bloody lights off, please. That's all I'm saying. This is across the railway. Just leaving it on is not an option anymore. You can't do it, because if we can't keep these costs down, there won't be a railway left. So please, we're not asking anything out of the ordinary. If you're going away from a job or moving around or you don't need the lights on, turn the damn things off. Thank you.
Can I just dispel a myth as well on that same thing, because it crops up in my work? There is a myth, and I assure you it's a myth. It's been a myth for 40 years, particularly with lights. Leaving them on is more efficient than turning them on and off. There is a word to describe it, but not using it in this forum, but it's a myth. Please, as David said, as I'm saying, if you don't need it, turn it off. You're going out for 5 minutes, turn it off. It doesn't matter. It all helps. Okay. So yeah, thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, Paul. Mike Kelly, have you said what you wanted to say?
No, I'd like to
We'll finish with Mike then.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's only a few weeks away since we reopened back in July 2021. And I often think that we're so busy, we never seem to stop to take stock of what we have achieved. And even in my career, very I took very little time to look at what had been achieved, quickly moving on to the next challenge or the next particular problem. But I wanted to just sort of briefly, along with Tracy tonight, who we've sent to the Severn Valley on a network meeting, just really not to get too down on ourselves as a railway, not to beat ourselves up if, you know, we haven't answered all the questions, or the weeds are too high, or the woodwork hasn't been painted. You know, if you think where we were some 12 months ago, the future was completely unknown, but we've obviously come out of COVID. As David said on his HOPS communique earlier this week, we've come out of COVID stronger thanks to government grants, use of the furlough scheme. We've got reduced loans now. City Wells belongs to us. The loan from the trust has been repaid. We've only got one loan, which is the government loan. And for me, as your chair, Tracy, as the general manager, the senior management team, and I'm sure I speak for everyone else, we're all extremely proud of what's been achieved since July 2021. We are stronger financially. I hear the voices of Paul Bonello and Kath and David. Inevitably, you know, the cost of living issue, the fuel issue is yet another challenge we have to confront. But we've come out of COVID with a capital program that we never had before. We've come out of COVID with reserves that we've never had before. We've got programs for restoration. We made a major investment in the pubs, which we believe as a board will increase the revenue returns from that area of activity. The fresh investment into the Bury Transport Museum, a new future, looks very positive ahead. Visitor numbers are coming back. Anybody who went to the Centenary weekend last week will be pleased to see, you know, such events like that are very well run. We have the capacity, the ability, the skill and the experience to put on top events such as those. The 2021 Santa sold out completely. We've won a national award, so we're being recognized regionally and nationally as a very well managed heritage railway, which is getting accolades across the board. Our comms people, with the help of democracy, a few weeks back, are reaching millions of potentially new customers with their strong marketing presence. Anyone who's on Facebook will see at least 3 or 4 Facebook postings a day, along with Twitter. So we've got a very strong media presence out there in the media world. We've got obviously improved communications through HOPS. Those who are on HOPS will vouch for that. You know, we introduced last year the Long Service Awards for our working volunteers as a thank you, free food, you know, more training programs. We've seen, you know, the success right across the board with new events coming in. We continue to look and search for new opportunities for revenue. And after hearing what Paul said, we probably have to try even harder. And I think for the ELR, yes, challenges will always remain. If you go back to 1972 and the early pioneers who didn't want the railway to die, they probably had insurmountable and daunting challenges, but they were resolute, they were stoic. You know, they had that self-belief that we could come through that. And I think that same self-belief I see is very much in play today. And I think with all the support of the whole railway, not them and us, and it's them up there and them down there, then the whole railway can pull together in times of challenge that we're facing right now. And I think for me, as the chair, this is my 7th year as the chair, and I'm very proud to be the chairman of the East Lancs Railway, but I'm also very proud of what everyone else is achieving across this railway. And I just wanted to remind everybody that everyone should feel very proud of what you are achieving. We will never have a situation, in my view, where there's never a challenge. You know, I always characterize this, we've got 10 jars of worms and we'll only ever have 8 lids. So the challenges are there, they're there to be tackled. And I'm sure with the willingness and determination and passion of the volunteers and our staff, we will come through 2022 and into 2023 beyond. I just wanted to thank everybody on behalf of myself, Tracy, and the ELR board for the great work that's going on. And we should take time out to be thankful that we've got through COVID and everyone's doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm going to close off now. I think I've covered everything in chat. For any of my team who are on here today, we are receiving the first delivery of Santa presents tomorrow. We've got 23,000 Santa presents to wrap between now and around about the end of October, beginning of November. I think that's about 12 to 1,500 a week. Anybody's good at wrapping presents, we have got new facilities for doing it, but they are being delivered tomorrow. So any of my team on who's available tomorrow, please come down and give us a hand about 10 o'clock. Right at the centre of the Santa operation, of course, is Lorna Massey, the events manager. For those who don't know that, we say goodbye to Lorna Massey today. She's off now for the next 10 days and will be coming back as Lorna Kelly.
Yes.
I am assured she will be no connection with the chairman. I did ask that explicitly, but she's getting married tomorrow and having a celebration the weekend. We wish her well. Hope she has a nice wedding, and we look forward to coming back in about 10 days' time. But in the meantime, work will go on, and so I'll be carrying on with the Santa work tomorrow. Anybody wants to come and help, about 10 o'clock, we've got the first delivery of presents. So after that, it's good night for me. I presume we'll be back sometime, maybe in October, when we have more to say. I shall certainly be trying to recruit Santa people at that time. Anybody who wants to be a Santa on the train or an elf, or you know anybody who might want to do those jobs, please contact me. The more that we have, the better. It's an interesting job, lots of fun, can be quite hard work, but it's quite enjoyable as well. So it's good night from me. I have finished, I think. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Mike.
Bye-bye, everybody.